นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Good evening and blessings to you all. As our period of lockdown continues, then so does the conversation about how will it all develop, when will it end. A bit like kids in the back seat of the car going on a journey. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? The impatience comes up, the frustrations with the rules and regulations and the limitations of the situation. Naturally, people start talking about vaccines. When will we get the vaccine, or how long till it comes? If we get a vaccine, will everyone take it, or only a few people take it? So, made me think about the Dhamma. Similar in a sense. They sometimes referred to the Buddha as the great doctor, because the Buddha has a remedy for every kind of suffering, because the full remedy for all suffering is the Eightfold Noble Path that leads to Nibbana. So whether you're talking about the physical ailments of a human body or the mental suffering we experience, all of that finishes with the attainment of Nibbana. So it's interesting that, even though the Buddha's teachings are in the world, they've been around for 2,500 years. It's not that everyone takes the Dhamma medicine. They talk about the Dhamma as like medicine for one's suffering, but not everyone takes it. Many people encounter the Dhamma but don't have any faith in the Buddha or his teachings. They don't want to practice. Or some people encounter the Dhamma or are born into a Buddhist family and they have some faith that it's a good thing, but still don't really explore it or put it more deeply into practice. The faith remains fairly superficial. So it's a bit like maybe remedies for COVID-19. Maybe the vaccine will be developed and distributed or made available, but there'll be those who still don't want it, maybe still catch the virus. It's probably part of our human karma. Some people are skeptical, suspicious, distracted, caught up in other things, and so they don't take on the Dhamma. And in the same way, maybe with a vaccine for a virus. But for those who are fortunate and encounter the Dhamma and see the value of it, then of course it can be something that becomes central to your life. And because the depth of the Dhamma it's so profound, there are teachings and guidance and instructions for pretty much everything we encounter in our life. It's all there, we just have to put it into practice. It's one of the things that I found very reassuring and inspiring about the Buddha's teaching is that everything is covered. Every question you have, if you keep listening or reading the Dhamma and then investigating it in your own experience, you can come to solutions and conclusions and answers. I haven't been disappointed yet. I'm still practicing for myself, still looking for some answers, but so far it's gone well in that sense. Everything that the Buddha said seems to be true. And so for many people, the more they practice, the more confidence they have. And in that sense, the easier it gets. And not to be complacent, but one starts to understand things more intuitively, not just through reasoning and reading and talking, but actually just knowing and seeing for oneself. And often without a lot of discussion needed, one just can see quickly something is right or wrong, something is for one's benefit or it's for other people's benefit or not. The more you practice, the more that becomes clear. One of the teachings that's often quoted in terms of the development of the mind, particularly in meditation, the teachings they call the four roads to success, or sometimes called the four bases for power. Many of the Pali words can be translated with slightly different words, but I like the four roads to success because everyone wants success in their meditation and in their Dhamma practice. Success in Buddhism means less suffering and then ultimately the end of suffering. More peace, more happiness. Everyone wants that. So these teachings have been given in various circumstances. They are particularly talked about as the way that the mind develops samadhi, states of calm, and then from that psychic powers, which is why they say the basis for power. But really they're four qualities that we employ all the time in our lives, not just in meditation, but in work, in study, in everything we do. The four qualities are chanda, which means like desire, wholesome desire, the willingness to do, to act, wanting to act. So in terms of meditation or bhavana, the Buddhist word for meditation, wanting to do it, a willingness to engage, to practice, to develop the mind in bhavana. The second quality is virya, which means effort, and particularly persistent effort. Continuous, persistent effort, the kind of effort that one doesn't easily give up or stop. If one wants success in something, one has to be willing to do it, and then one has to be willing to put effort into that task or that activity. The third quality is citta. And citta is one of the words we use for the mind itself. And it particularly means the quality of mind that the mind is focused or focused attention on the object or on the task in hand. So not wavering, not distracted. And the last is vimamsa, which is another word for wisdom. There's many words for wisdom in Pali and in the Buddhist teachings. This is one of them, and it particularly means that quality of investigating the truth to develop understanding of what one's doing, the best way to achieve success, what success is, what is the goal, what is the path that leads to the goal, and so on. So these are the four roads to success, and they're four qualities that come up throughout the Buddhist teachings, not just in this one grouping. And they work together, they support each other, as do many aspects of the Buddhist path. There's many factors that one develops, and these different factors, like friends, they support each other to get the job done or to reach success. So say in terms of meditation, to meditate, it's important when you begin meditation is to know what your state of mind is, what the attitude is you're bringing to your meditation. So if it's a practice of sitting meditation or walking meditation, maybe one of the first things you do as you begin your meditation session, you ask yourself, how am I feeling? What's running through my mind right now? What is the attitude I'm bringing to this practice of meditation right now, right here? And chanda is this quality. It means wholesome desire, wanting to do something. So how enthusiastic are you for your meditation when you begin, the very beginning of your meditation? because meditation practice is like anything else in life. If you're doing it regularly, it can easily become a habit that one just performs perfunctorily out of habit. It's something that once upon a time one thought that was a good idea, I should do that more often, so then maybe you commit to doing meditation, every day. But over time, one gets into a habit where one is kind of doing it on remote control in a more casual way or unmindful way, where one is physically sitting down, closing the eyes, but maybe not very aware of the quality, quality of mind, the attitude that one's bringing to the practice on that day at that time. If you practice meditation regularly, you'll notice it changes. Some days you are enthusiastic and you want to do it. Some days you don't. Some days you're resistant, stubborn, fed up, caught in a mood. And that's one of the tasks of meditation. One of the results of meditation is one is actually becoming aware of one's state of mind. Day by day, moment by moment, meditation will reveal to you your state of mind. That's correct. That's what's supposed to happen. It's not always a peaceful, clear, wise state of mind. It could be a very strong emotional state or just a lot of dullness, confusion, sleepiness. But at least at the very beginning of the meditation, check in with yourself. What's motivating you at this moment? How strong is your chanda, your faith, your desire to do the practice? If it's weak, you notice resistance or fed up, I got to do my meditation again. You don't really want to do it. You're seeing it more like a chore. Maybe that's a good time to stop and actually remind yourself why you do this practice. And we have many good reflections, techniques we can employ when your mind is in a more resistant state or feeling down, depressed. So one of them is to recollect the Buddha, who the Buddha was, what the Buddha means to you, the qualities of the Buddha, or the Dhamma, the liberating nature of the Dhamma, the truth. What is the Dhamma? It's the truth. The more you can bring your mind to see and understand truth, and particularly the truth of suffering, its origin, its cessation, the path that leads to the cessation, what we call the Four Noble Truths. Just reminding yourself of that and bringing your awareness to where am I at in my practice of the Dhamma, the truth. Just reflecting on the qualities of the Dhamma, the liberating qualities, the understanding you get from it. And then the Sangha, recollecting the qualities of Sangha, those who have realized the truth following the Buddha. And that could be recollecting a particular person, a teacher, a guide who embodies those qualities, but also the qualities themselves, the sort of qualities you are aspiring to if you're practicing meditation following the Buddha, aspiring to the end of suffering, to enlightenment. Sometimes just reflecting on these things brings up some chanda, some desire to practice. You remember people you've been inspired by, whether it's people you know or have heard about. By recollecting them, you get some motivation, some enthusiasm coming up to practice. And particularly people who do have a teacher, say from my personal experience, recollecting teachers I've lived with like Luang Por Chah, Luang Por Anan. Sometimes you just recollect a teacher and straight away the mind clears. It's like today, it's been cloudy and rainy all day, but suddenly you get a break in the cloud, the sun comes out. You recollect a teacher, or recollecting the Buddha can be the same, and suddenly all the other stuff disappears simply by putting your mind to recollect that which is inspiring to you. Then it's much easier to continue with your practice of meditation at that time. Or some other people, they found it helpful to recollect the good that they've done in the past. Good actions, good activities, good things they've done in their life, acts of kindness, generosity, keeping precepts, the meditation they've done in the past. Even reminding yourself what it was like the last time that you were peaceful. Because most people, sooner or later, they will have some experience of peace, happiness, contentment in their meditation. Maybe not every time, but sometimes it's at the beginning of a meditation, you sit down, you remember what it felt like when you were peaceful, however long ago. Maybe it was a long time ago, but hopefully there's still some memory of it. And you remember, the qualities, how did my mind feel at that time? Many people, they say when they do become more peaceful in their meditation, when mindfulness becomes more continuous and they settle down and they let go of some of the worries, the thoughts that were bothering them, they always have this realization, they have this feeling like, why didn't I do this before? What took me so long? Why have I been thinking all this other rubbish when I should have just been letting it go and settling down with the breath? It's a very common experience. They just feel like, I should have been doing this much quicker than this. Why did I waste all that time? So remember some of those occasions. If you're struggling in your meditation, you sit down, you're not peaceful, just remember back to some time where you have experienced that. It might help your mind just to settle and have more confidence to keep practicing. So this is probably why in this list of 4 qualities, chanda or wholesome desire, wanting to practice comes first, because you have to want to practice if you're going to practice. And it's very difficult to force someone to meditate. Maybe we should try sometimes, force people to meditate, but you can't really do it because mentally they've got to want to do it for it to be successful. And we have to learn how to arouse some confidence and wish, really, that willpower and the wish to want to practice. We have to learn how to do that. Sometimes we have to use these other techniques as well, just kind of bring the mind to the right mood, the right frame of mind. So even with kids, everyone wants their kids to learn to meditate so they can be more calm, more mindful. But you can't force kids to do it either. Sometimes you have to find skillful ways. So I remember one teacher saying that they were teaching meditation in the classroom and just teaching the kids to watch their breath was too difficult. Little kids, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, they couldn't do it because their mind are just too scattered, they got too much energy, they want to move around. So the teacher was having difficulty getting the kids to sit down and watch their breath. But then they introduced the second part of the meditation. They got each child to hold their favorite cuddly toy, or a cuddly toy that they liked and found they were happy, comfortable with. They would hold it, and as their breath went in and out their chest, they would hold the cuddly toy at their chest, focus their eyes on the cuddly toy, but then also follow the feeling of the in and out breath. That way they found they could do it quite successfully. So using that same kind of thing, sometimes you need to have a strategy or a few different aids, tools that you can bring in at that time when you're struggling, say at the very beginning of your meditation, to help you settle down and get into the meditation. The other danger with this is you have to also recognize the difference between what we call skillful desire or wholesome desire, chanda, which is often called kusala chanda, and unskillful desire, which is usually translated as craving, tanha in Buddhism, which is the cause of suffering. So there's one kind of desire that leads on to skillful action, to doing the practice with a wholesome, a good attitude. Then there's another kind of desire that leads on to craving, which always leads to agitated states of mind, stress, and often disappointment when we don't get what we want. So in meditation, the unwholesome craving tends to be more centered around, what am I going to get from this? I want to get peace. I want to get a blissful state of mind. I want to have no thoughts in my mind is a very common thing you hear people say. I don't want to have a single thought in my mind. So already you're setting yourself up to suffer, because as soon as a thought pops into the mind, it's, oh no. And we become very upset with ourselves or disappointed. Some people even blame the Buddha. I've heard them before. Why did the Buddha teach this? It's so difficult. Or we blame somebody else or blame ourselves. We go to disappointment because craving tends to fuel, first of all, expectation, wanting peace, wanting results from the practice, maybe wanting special knowledge, maybe wanting psychic powers even. But then when we don't get what we want, we very quickly turn to disappointment, aversion, which is another form of craving. Craving tends to stimulate more craving. So it's very common for people who desire a lot from their practice to then become miserable, disappointed, and want to give up. Quite a common scenario. So to be on the lookout for unskillful desires and wanting, and try and teach yourself just to put them to one side and put one skillful desire into the actual practice of the meditation without expecting too much in the way of results or hoping for results. So if you're doing the breath meditation, to put the effort into watching the breath. That's where your main effort and your enthusiasm should go, into that effort to put attention on the breath. And the results, they come quickly, slowly, when it doesn't matter so much. Learn to enjoy the meditation in the present moment, to enjoy putting the attention on the breath and letting go of that desire for results. And anyone who meditates will learn, or you can apply these exact same principles and guidelines in other aspects of your life, whether it's you're studying or learning a skill or a hobby or a sport or something, or work that you do for a living. All of us do things in our life that we're not that into. Sometimes it's part of our job or part of our responsibilities. You live in a house, you own a house or rent a house, you've got to clean the house, maintain it. So there'll be jobs you have to do that you don't really like or want to do. But if you understand this principle of just making that task the object of your mind at that time, putting mindfulness, putting effort into it, time can go quite quickly, and you don't feel so miserable or disappointed with the task if you're just using it as a way to train your mind, and just training your mind from moment to moment to do the task. I had my first understanding of this probably when I was first at Ajahn Chah's monastery, and they were teaching us sweeping, and the monk who was teaching me, he said, when you sweep leaves in the monastery, just sweep. You don't have to think about how long it will take, how many leaves there are. You just sweep and enjoy it and just do it. It's a good exercise. It's a useful thing for the community to keep the paths clear. And in Thailand that matters, because if you don't sweep the paths, you don't see the snakes or the biting ants or the scorpions. So it is worthwhile doing it. But don't worry about how long it's going to take, how many leaves there are. Just do it. Just look at the end of your broom. Focus there. Don't focus out beyond what you're doing at that time. Because the mind of craving, the unwholesome desire, is always looking beyond the end of the broom and saying, well, how long is this job going to take? Is it worth it? What am I going to get in return? I just get hot and dusty. What's the point? And this area I've got to do is so big. Why did they give me so much job? Such a big job. That's the mind of craving. It doesn't settle down. It goes to suffering. Whereas if you have the mind of kusala chanda, wholesome desire, you just do what you can. And Ajahn Chah used to say, give it all you've got. If you've got a job to do, whether you like it or not, just give it all you've got, and you might find that the time passes easily and the job gets done. It may still be unpleasant, even tiring, but you have a better time of it as you're doing that job if you just give it all you've got. When I first went to his monastery, I stayed there, and I stayed at Wat Pananachat. I was still a student, and I already decided to become a monk. And because I was in the middle of a university degree, I thought, I better go back and finish my degree. I started it. I wanted to say goodbye to my parents, clear up my affairs, so I went back to the UK for about 8 months to finish my degree. And because I decided to become a monk, I had no interest in the university degree I was doing. I wasn't interested in the information I was learning. I was doing a history degree, and it was like, what's the point of this? I want to become a Buddhist monk. I don't need to learn about what they were doing hundreds of years ago in the world. So I really had very little enthusiasm for the work I was doing, but I took on what this teaching I had received in Thailand is that even though you sometimes do tasks you don't really want to do, you can still learn from them. They can still teach you something. So I thought, well, I'll still just do the best I can, do my degree, finish the assignments, do the exams. It wasn't very enjoyable or exciting for me because I had something else I wanted to go on and do, and I knew I wouldn't use the information. But I did it as a way of training myself. And I found that quite useful, learning just how to do something that I didn't want to do, but just to complete it anyway. And I'm still using that kind of knowledge and insight today, because if you live in a Buddhist monastery, there'll always be things you have to do but you don't really want to do, but you have to do them just for the community or for what's useful. That year I went back to the UK to study at university. I was doing this degree, putting all my time into that without any enthusiasm, not enjoying it. But the thing I did enjoy was the practice of dana. I was going to support Lumpur Samedo's monastery regularly, offering there, and I was getting rid of all my possessions. So, one of the happiest memories of that year wasn't completing my degree and getting my degree and passing the exams. It was giving my motorbike away to my friend who received it. I said, "You can have this," and he said, "How much do you want for it?" I said, "No, you don't need to give me any money. You just have it. I don't need it anymore." And the look on his face, because he'd never had seen anyone just give a motorbike away. That was a nice memory from that year. So when you do a job, even sometimes meditation, when you're not in a good mood, you just do it. You may not get a lot of good memories from a time when you're just doing it because you're training yourself, you're just doing the job. Might not be that enjoyable, but you are learning something. You're learning patience, you're learning to bring up energy, training your mind to focus on a task and let go of your resistance, your moods, and so on. So chanda, this wholesome desire, leads right into the other second quality, which is virya, which is like effort, energy that we put into our practice. If you have some motivation, you're willing to do it, then it's easier to get the energy up to keep putting effort into training your mind. And we all know our mind is very resistant, doesn't want to focus on the breath quite often. It wants to think 101 other things. It's all over the place, the monkey mind. You have to wrestle with it, you have to work with it. So you need energy. And the kind of energy the Buddha was encouraging us to develop is what we call persistent effort, persistent energy. Learning how to keep summoning up effort to put into the practice of training the mind. Because it's quite difficult. Most people in the beginning, they find the first period of their meditation practice, they're putting forth lots of effort, they try really hard, they got high expectations, and then after a while they can't sustain it. So then they start to sort of flatten off their effort, don't experience so much peace, the mindfulness is not so strong, so they then maybe go downhill a bit, become a bit depressed or want to give up. But the people who become successful in meditation, or in Buddhist meditation, that means developing states of calm, samadhi, and then insight. They've learned how to not dwell in these highs and lows. They may experience highs and lows in their practice, but they've learned to just press on, keep practicing. And where we're developing our effort in the practice is mainly putting effort into bringing up mindfulness, awareness in the present moment. Using meditation objects, but also using our daily activities, whatever we're involved with, and just being aware of the mind from the moment to moment through our day. And learning to be mindful of whatever's going on in your mind. So if you are experiencing a high, you had a good meditation, just to be mindful of that, bring up the mindfulness and know, oh, today things went well. But not to cling on to it, not to hang on to it or dwell on it, just accept it and then move on. Keep practicing. Or when you go through lows, exactly the same. Bring up the mindfulness and know, oh, my mind is all over the place today, not very peaceful, not much joy in the meditation, but just know that. So you know your mind that when it's peaceful, you know your mind when it's not peaceful. You know when you're enjoying the meditation, you know when you're not enjoying it much. But you're learning to develop this ability just to be aware of your state of mind rather than following the moods and buying into them. And for that, you need to keep generating effort, energy in the practice, keep coming back to the mindfulness. And you'll find that's the way your meditation progresses and your mind gets stronger from this, and these qualities flow out into the rest of your life. You get better at bringing up mindfulness even when you're feeling down or you're ill or tired, whatever. In Thailand, we used to have a saying from Ajahn Kalyano, meditation, you have to learn to meditate a bit like food. When you're eating food, like in Thailand, there's a monk, especially when you're living in the poorer rural areas, you go out on alms round every day, and some days you go to a village and you always get lots of rice, and some days you get lots of fruit and some food, curries or cakes or something as well. But some days you just get plain rice. And if you're staying out in the forest or in a little hermitage, maybe that's all you get for the day is what you get in the village on your alms round. So you come back to the place where you have to eat. Some days you open your bowl and it's full of all kinds of good food to eat, and that's good, it's healthy, and it gives you a lot of strength and you appreciate it. Some days you open your bowl and all you got is plain rice. It's still enough. And so you learn to eat, whether you get a lot of food or you just get plain rice, you learn to get by, because you can get by on plain rice. Maybe not for months on end, but certainly for a day or two it's easy to get by. You get some food, but it's not entirely satisfying what you want, but it's enough. So we say meditation is like that. Some days you sit down to meditate, you put your effort into calming the mind, putting the mindfulness on the breath, and things go well. One thing leads to another. Your effort leads on to a state of calm arising. You feel calm, you get joy, piti, you get rapture and happiness. You feel very content. Maybe you let go of all your stress. You achieve a very peaceful, bright state of mind. Then the next day you do it and nothing. You try it, you sit down, you want to do exactly the same as the day before, but nothing. Your mind is all over the place. Your body is aching, you feel tired, your mind is thinking a lot. But still you put effort into that practice, and they say, well, that's like a day where you just get plain rice. So there's a difference between plain rice and a full meal with curries and salad or whatever. You don't always get the same food, you don't always get the same experience in your meditation, but you do it anyway. And you can get by on plain rice, you can get by on meditating with a not very peaceful state of mind, you can still get by on it. And you might still learn something from it. So the kind of effort that leads to success, the Buddha was saying, is this kind of effort where you're learning to keep going, not give up. Or like Ajahn Chah said, in meditation, why do we sometimes fail to really achieve much insight, much understanding, much state of peace, not much peace? Because we try a little bit and then we stop. We try a bit more and then we stop. It's not yet persistent effort. So it's like the man making fire out of two pieces of wood, like in the old days. They rub the two pieces of wood together to get friction, to get heat, and then to get a little spark, and you can light some dry grass or something, and then you can get a fire. But if you've been rubbing these sticks together and your wrists get tired, and before they get hot, you put them down to rest, and you have a nice rest, and then you pick them up again and rub a bit more. But then as they're just getting hot, you put them down because you're getting tired. Well, you're never going to get the heat and the spark to start the fire. And all that effort is kind of wasted in a sense, because you keep letting the heat dissipate by putting things down and stopping. Many meditators have this problem. They try hard and then they stop, and then they try hard and then they stop. So we're learning to develop a more consistent effort, continuous effort, until success starts to come. So that does take practice, but as we put effort in, we'll get better at it. It becomes a skill. You learn how to summon up effort. And sometimes we do say the Dhamma is like a medicine, and I've seen monks who have been out in the forest and very ill, but they still can keep their meditation going. They may have a lot of pain and discomfort, but they still learn how to bring up the mindfulness, not to give in to the moods of the mind, the mood of sort of feeling very depressed or down, or just feeling lazy or distracted. They don't give in. They keep bringing up the mindfulness even when they're very ill. And you see, that's one of the amazing things about the human mind. You can even bring up mindfulness in the midst of despair, illness, tiredness. When things go wrong, you can still be mindful. But you do have to put effort into that, bringing up the mindfulness. What you find is when you do learn to bring up effort and continuously bring up effort, well, the mind becomes more focused on the object in meditation, whether you're just developing breath meditation or you're contemplating the arising and passing away of phenomena, vipassana meditation. The more mindfulness you have, the more continuous it is, and the mind really focuses on what you're aiming to focus on. And this is the third of those qualities. It's called citta. So it's really about where is your mind as you're doing that task, whether you're meditating, or you're learning something, you're studying something, or you're doing a job. Where is your mind from moment to moment as you're doing that task? And so you need to have that ability to stick with it, keep your mind focused on it, because then you can learn from what you're doing. You can understand, and wisdom, which is the fourth quality, can arise. If you allow your mind to just wander everywhere, get distracted, then it's very hard to learn. You can't remember anything because you're distracted. You can't see anything. They say the mind that is focused on something, there's a chance to really see all the details and understand what's going on, see with clarity. If your mind is not focused, it's jumping from here to there all the time, moving around, different thoughts, different moods, different sensations in the body, but just jumping around, then it's very difficult to get much understanding from what you're doing. It's difficult to be successful in your meditation. You find that when your mind starts to focus on its object, if you're doing breath meditation, for instance, as you keep focusing, you naturally will be letting go of everything else. Why do people become peaceful when they meditate? It's because they're letting go of whatever else is that would normally distract them. So if you're focusing on the breath, you've got motivation, you've got that desire to practice, you're putting effort in to bring that mindfulness up, you're putting your attention on the breath, your mind is right with the breath. The more and more it's doing that, experiencing the breath, well, the less it will be thinking about other things. So naturally it starts to drop. We say relinquish other things, whether it's negative thoughts, stress, anger, worry, fear, desires for other things. If you're becoming more and more focused, paying attention on the breath, all these other things become less important in your consciousness. So your mind is in one place. And for a human being, that's a very peaceful experience. If you can keep your mind in one place, you start to feel comfortable in body and mind. You feel content in body and mind. And it leads on, in the sense it leads you on, you can keep doing it. And that's why people who meditate regularly start to be able to sit longer, for longer periods of time, because body and mind are calming down, relaxing. And you may still have some physical pain, sensations of pain come up. You may have some distracting thoughts come up, or sleepiness, or some negativity. But because there's this sense of calm, enjoyment even, you could say, the body and mind are calming down, your mind starts to enjoy what it's doing, then it's very easy to tolerate these small impingements. So a bit of pain doesn't bother you. It's there in the background of your awareness, but it doesn't bother you because your mind is happily staying with the breath. If you're focused, it's like that. You may have a memory pop up of something that would normally make you angry or upset or worried, but because you're comfortably staying with the breath, you just see it as a memory. Oh, there's that memory. You know why it would make you angry or upset. if you were to indulge it, but you don't, because you're happily going along with the breath, so you're able to let it go. Normally in life we have much less samadhi, less calm, less mindfulness. So when things pop into our experience, whether it's a memory or something from our external senses, if it's something that we don't like, well, it'll tend to overwhelm us very quickly. And so, the words of other people, if they criticize us or say something that we feel is not right, not true, straight away we feel hurt or we feel anger. It may be a long time before we can let that go. Or if someone is flattering you or praising you, well, maybe we like that and we indulge in the pleasure of that experience. But when your mind is focused on its object, you're still aware of, say, praise or blame or pleasure and pain, but your mind doesn't dwell on it. It's able to let it go. It's willing to let it go because you've got something better. And this is an important principle to understand. When people doubt about meditation, they're skeptical. What's the point? Why invest all this time sitting and walking meditation, practicing mindfulness? Well, when you do it, you get better at letting go. You can solve things, solve your problems. You consciously feel better for it. May only be you may only see small, slight improvements in your state of mind, but if you're doing it regularly, you will see those improvements, and then you understand sometimes it's better to let something go than to hang on to it. So these three qualities, the desire to practice, the effort, and the focusing the mind's attention, all come to this support, the arising of the fourth quality, wisdom. And wisdom in Buddhism tends to be centered around understanding what leads to suffering and what leads to the end of suffering. And letting go, it's a shorthand for many actions we do with our mind, many qualities we're developing. But in short, you're letting go of the causes of suffering. You're letting go of the mind that grasps hold of desires, attachments, clings on to various mental states, views, opinions, desiring external material things, pleasures. But having seen that leads to suffering, the clinging on, the holding on, the mind is much more willing to let go then. And that's what we call wisdom. In the beginning when we're practicing and these four qualities are not yet strong, then you might have arguments as you practice. So you're doing your meditation, you start arguing with yourself, I'll let go of that, I don't need that. You've got some desire for something nice that you're looking forward to, something you want to buy or something you want to eat or some pleasure you want to have, for example, and you're imagining that. And then another part of the mind says, don't waste your time thinking about that. It's just a small kind of happiness, a small pleasure. Just let it go. Don't waste time and energy on that. Get back to your breath. But in the beginning, your mindfulness is not very strong. So even though you have that argument, maybe the desire wins and you rather sit there desiring something for half an hour than following the breath. But if you keep practicing, those little arguments and disagreements will you'll spend less time on them because your mind, your wisdom starts to come up and the more time I spend fantasizing about the things I desire, getting angry and upset about all the experiences I had that I didn't like, I'm just wasting my time and my energy. My mental energy is all drained, my mind is not calm and peaceful, I have no insight, no awareness, no mindfulness. Over time and practice, you can see that more clearly, so then your mind is willing to let go much more quickly, more easily. And in the end, you don't have to have any arguments at all in your mind. You just know, if I hold on to this, I'm suffering. If I let it go, I'm happy, therefore let it go. And you don't have to have a conversation about it, you just know. That's the kind of letting go the Buddha was aiming for to get us to develop in our practice, the ability to see something as the cause of suffering and let it go straight away. Just as when you're a kid, you don't yet know about fire, so you go and touch fire, something that's hot, you get burnt, and you never touch it again. You always know from then on, fire makes you burn, makes you painful, it's not good, don't want it. You learn that and you don't think about it ever again, you just know. That's what letting go is. That is what we call wisdom in Buddhism, where you see something is a cause of suffering and you immediately drop it. In the beginning you have to have this discussion, you have doubts, maybe not, or even when you know you still can't do it because part of your mind doesn't accept it. It's not yet wisdom, but the process of contemplating, understanding things better is what we call vimamsa, the fourth of these qualities that lead to success. If you keep training in that and developing that, you get sharper, clearer in what is a cause of suffering, an attachment rooted in maybe greed, selfishness, anger, fear, worry, or just delusion. And even in meditation, we can practice with a lot of delusion. We may still be doing the right thing. We're doing the practice regularly, sitting, walking, developing mindfulness on the breath, doing our vipassana, okay. But if you're doing regularly, one of the things that it can become a bit of a habit. So sometimes we get caught into just doing it in this perfunctory manner, just going through the motions, filling in the hours. We have a vague idea it's a good thing, but we're not really focusing on the quality of mind as we're doing it. We're just ticking off the boxes, filling in the hours. That's one problem. Another problem is sometimes we become very obsessive with the whole thing. And we've heard the talks like this, we've got the instructions from the Buddha, from our teacher, we know what we should be doing, and we sort of become very obsessive about our own mind, what's right, what's wrong, how we like it, how things should be, but without stepping back and reflecting on what's going on in the mind. A good example of this, in Thailand they have one story about the old guy who used to work or volunteer in a temple. So he's like a temple assistant, and he was very devoted, a lot of faith, a lot of energy, and he's always in the temple every day, weeding and cleaning up and mopping and making sure everything was tidy and looked after. So he had many good qualities. He was appreciated by people. And before he died, he had a bit of savings and he wanted to do something good for the community, so he put his money into building a little roadside shelter. Not in the monastery, this was by the side of the main road between two cities. And in the old days in Thailand, these roadside shelters would be a place where travellers would stay overnight, where they reached a shelter, it was getting dark, there's nowhere else to stay, no hotels, and they didn't have any money anyway, very poor. But these open-sided shelters, there's a roof, a floor, maybe a few mats were available. Travellers could stay there for a night, so it was considered something very useful for the community. So sometimes people would build them for the community as an act of charity. So this old man did that, and he built his shelter, and not long after that he died. Then people would stay at this shelter, travellers, sometimes 2, 3, sometimes 5, 6, 7, depending who was travelling, what the group was. And it started to get a reputation, this one particular shelter, people would stay there and they would put out mats, and however many people were there, they'd lie down sort of in a line of people for the night to sleep, to rest. And during the night, people felt there was something moving around, something going on. And it was this old man, he was a ghost. He's so attached to his little shelter, and he's so obsessive about his shelter and how it has to be immaculate and good. So at night, he'd be walking around it as a ghost. And he'd see everyone sleeping there, so he was very happy about that. But then he'd see them, he'd walk down one side and he'd see all the legs. And, there's short people, tall people, children, men, women, and everyone's a different size. So he didn't like that because he's obsessive, obsessive compulsive disorder maybe, some kind of obsessive person, very attached to cleanness, order. So he would, the feet that were too long, he'd pull back a bit. The feet that were too short, going down the line, he'd pull down a bit until he got them all dead line. Then he'd be very happy, a very happy ghost. Then he'd walk around, do a U-turn, come back round the other side where the heads were. But because he's got all the feet in line now, the heads are all out. Oh, the short people, the tall people, they're all out of line again. No, this won't do. So he starts pushing the heads down, pulling them out, pushing them in, getting them all in line, go down the line, and he'd come back to the feet. Oh, now all the feet are going out. So he'd spend the whole night walking around these lines of people sleeping, adjusting the heads, adjusting the feet, and nobody would sleep very well, and they'd wake up in the morning thinking, I think this place is haunted. So anyway, this is a story in Thailand, but the point is they give it as an example of doing something. Maybe he's got a lot of chanda, he's got all the desire to have a good rest house, a good shelter, everyone there, do some good for the community. He's got effort, he put effort into building this place. Now he's the ghost looking after it, he's got all the effort and energy, he's very focused, he's got citta, but he hasn't got vimangsa, he hasn't got wisdom. He's not seen how much suffering he's going through trying to get everybody to be exactly the same. It's impossible. So meditators can have this same problem. They sit down to meditate and they want their mind to be exactly as they've read in the Buddhist texts or as the teacher has said. They want to have no thoughts, nothing bothering them, no stress, no negativity, no sleepiness, nothing. And you hear this, people come and they say, Ajahn, teach me how to just get nothing in my mind. I just want nothing. So just like this poor ghost, constantly trying to get rid of this, get rid of that. They never settle down, they're never peaceful because they're just too obsessed with the whole thing. So sometimes we have to actually step back, just relax a bit. Sometimes we have to be very tolerant, accept the way the mind is. Okay, today there's a lot of thinking, a lot of negative thinking. Not to make more trouble for yourself by taking it all very personally and then trying to adjust every thought, make it this way, make it that way. Don't do that because you become a hungry ghost. Sometimes you have to just be very relaxed, accept things as they are, and gradually bring up the wisdom and see, these things, what do they all have in common? Well, every thought that comes into your mind is impermanent. It arises, it ceases. When you step back, you're mindful, you're aware, and you just notice, they arise, they cease. Whether they're a good thought, a bad thought, crazy thought, they arise, they cease. If you start to focus on that, the impermanent nature of thoughts arising, passing away, then your mind starts to get some wisdom, it's grounded. So we have to use this reflective capacity of the mind. We have to reflect on what we're doing. We're practicing meditation, we reflect on it. Learn to understand what you're doing, maybe have to reflect on, the approach you're taking, the amount of effort you're putting in, you're trying too hard, not hard enough. There's many things we need to learn as we go along. But as wisdom develops, you start to feel more grounded because you learn from your experience and you know what is what. You know when you're attaching too strongly, giving too much importance to some things, then that makes you suffer. If you put too much importance on having an absolutely peaceful mind with no thoughts, well, as long as you haven't got that, you might get very stressed and you might never achieve it. If you put more importance on just bringing up mindfulness, accepting what's in your mind, but bringing up the mindfulness and just keep going gently, keep putting effort in, maybe you'll achieve what you want, but without all that obsessive desire and trying to control everything. So wisdom is needed as well, the fourth of these qualities that lead to success in meditation. And you'll see if you learn these four qualities in meditation, then they'll apply to everything else you do, whether it's study, work, cleaning your house, whatever it may be, you can use them. So maybe for tonight I've talked enough, just given you some encouragement in your practice, but they're a good reflection to bring up, the four qualities that lead to success, or the four roads to success. That's chanda, wholesome desire; virya, persistent effort; citta is focused attention; vimangsa, the ability to reflect and understand what you're doing and develop wisdom around it. If you employ these and develop these qualities, I'm sure you will find some success in your meditation. So for tonight, I wish you all well, and may the blessings of the Triple Gem guide you and protect you.